Today we are going to be talking about 5 key tips to attracting pollinators in your garden. First of all, when we're talking about pollinators, we're meaning those lovely native bees, butterflies, moths, fireflies, and other critters that help to pollinate our flowers, which in turn make our gardens more healthy, balanced, and beautiful. Not only will you get to enjoy a garden buzzing with activity, but you'll also be doing your part to improve biodiversity in your area by providing more food sources and homes for your local pollinators. To help you remember these 5 tips, I've created a little mnemonic, N3H cubed. So remember N3H3 when designing your garden for pollinators and aiming to build biodiversity in your yard. Let me walk you through it now. N stands for native plants. Think of pollinators as picky eaters, or the fussy faces that you know in your life. Pollinators are mostly interested in native plants, and when you start to learn more about why, it begins to make sense. Native or indigenous plants are those that existed in your area long before you or any of us built the homes that we're gardening in today. And the pollinators that you are inviting into your gardens today have a symbiotic relationship with these native plants that has evolved over millennia. Although plants from other countries or plants that have been cultivated or hybridized may be beautiful and perfectly fit your garden design dreams, nothing beats the relationship that native pollinators have with native plants. Native plants provide just the right mix of pollen, nectar, and other nutrients, and some may even have specific physical properties that have evolved alongside the physical characteristics of your local pollinators. For example, think of coneflower blossoms and the landing pad-like structure that they have so that butterflies can easily stop by for a sip without their large wings getting in the way. Or obedient plant and the open mouths designed to welcome in bumblebees and other pollinators right into every flower head for a private, protected sip. Now this means that you may have to do a little bit of research because what is native for me might be significantly different than what is native for you, especially if we live in different countries or even different sides of the same country. But that is nothing that a simple web search can't help with. And I do plan on doing a little video in the future on acquiring native plants, but to get things started, simply do a search for native plants in your city and a second search for native plant nurseries in your area as well. And that should get you going. I've also found that Facebook groups have been particularly helpful for me, but more on that in my later video. Number 2 is number 3. 3 is your magic number. Let me explain. Pollinators are not only picky, but they're hungry too. To support and attract the most pollinators in your garden, you want to have native flowers blooming over the 3 growing seasons: spring, summer, and fall. And in each of these seasons, you want to have at least 3 different varieties of native flowers in bloom, with at least 3 specific plants of each of those varieties, ideally grouped together so that the pollinators can easily identify this bounty that you're providing for them. So when you're doing your garden planning and your design, think 3 by 3 by 3. Now don't let this overwhelm you. This is just your guide. Not everyone can do a complete overhaul and plant at least 27 or more plants in their gardens in just one season. I know I certainly couldn't do that. You can definitely start small. Start with 1 plant even and go from there. And trust me, once you start seeing the difference that you're making in the garden and the more pollinators that start visiting your space, you will only want to keep going and plant more and more native plants each and every year. Now for the H's, and we've got 3 of them, hence H cubed. H number 1 is for host plants. Many pollinators, being picky pantses yet again, will only lay their eggs or host their young on particular plants or families of plants. And without those baby pollinators, like caterpillars, you don't have the beautiful pollinators visiting your garden and essentially sustaining life as we know it at all. Bonus points for this tip is that you can start to find chrysalises and caterpillars, which makes your garden even more fun to explore in as you witness the full life cycle happening in your own backyard. Do a bit of research and find host plants for the pollinators in your area. I'm sure that you will be pleasantly surprised with the wide variety of beautiful options that you can choose from. H number 2 is for habitat. Again, similar to host plants, without those baby critters, we won't have the pollination services and biodiversity in our gardens that we are striving for. The trick to providing habitat for pollinators is doing less is more. Try not to keep your garden and yard too pristine, too tidy. Leave the leaves, especially in your garden beds. Many pollinators make a home on those leaves and use them as a safe space to overwinter. Leave bare soil in your yard, uncovered by mulch. Many solitary bees and other pollinators create nests underground and need access to the soil without having to dig through mulch or other obstacles like landscaping fabric. Leave faded plants. Many pollinators will make a home in hollow or pithy stems of faded flowers and may not emerge until next season or even the season after that. Best to leave things be, no pun intended, and let nature just run its course. Leave logs and decomposing wood. Many critters will make a home in decomposing wood, including fireflies, and it can actually help with the health of your garden in many ways. Haven't you seen that old Magic School Bus episode? We know this, people. If you must tidy up the garden, consider the chop and drop method and lay stems down behind your plants, or even create a pollinator pile in a discrete area in your yard where you can lay cut stems down and keep doing so over time. And finally, H number 3, have fun. Sometimes getting into native plant gardening, supporting pollinators, and building biodiversity in your own yard can seem overwhelming. It seems like there are so many more rules than just pick up that pretty plant at the store and plant it in your garden. But take it one step at a time, one plant at a time. And once you see the difference that your garden is making, and you see all those new pollinators that come to visit when you use these tips, you will see your work in action and realize that it's all worth it in the end. You'll be surprised at how much of a difference you can see with even just a plant or two. From my own experience, I planted obedient plant as my first native plant, and by the end of the season, I could see new activity that exploded the following growing season. Within a year, I was getting visits from rarer pollinators, including tons of bees, butterflies, and even a hummingbird hawk moth. So have fun, start small, and let your garden grow, and enjoy seeing all these new visitors to your space year after year. Trust me, the pollinators will thank you. You're making real changes that not only look beautiful, but make the world a better place for us all. So thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. I'll include some links in the description of the video with some tip sheets from the Pollinator Partnership for choosing the right native plants to support pollinators in your garden, and some other helpful links as well. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more gardening info and tips just like this. Happy gardening!